I'm delighted to say Fiona Hayes is with us this morning to look forward to Ireland against England, which is on this weekend. Fiona, good morning to you.
Good morning, delighted to be here.
Tell us, so what's your reaction to the news that we have made a big bet? It's not a secret. We knew what was going to happen. We knew that Johnny Sexton was going to sign a new deal and would be staying through until the World Cup. He said that's the end for him. It does mean, though, that our eggs are very firmly in the Johnny Sexton basket.
I think so, but I also think that with this, we're getting Joey a bit more game time. I think we know exactly what Johnny's like injury wise. So it'll kind of depend on, I suppose, when we look at the summer tour, we'll get a chance, hopefully over in New Zealand, to get a few guys more game time. It's been kind of levelled out, and hopefully in this England game at the weekend at Twickenham, we'll see both out halves get on and get a shot at equaling that. We know Sexton is the man at the minute, and hopefully when it comes to World Cup he will still be playing the way he is, and he's been protected a lot by Leinster, as Eddie Jones pointed out in his press conference the other day. But it's great for me. I think he's an outstanding player, and he's still bringing it at this age of 36 to the game.
We're not hostage to Sexton either, though. I mean, if he's not the starting 10 for the World Cup on form, he won't be the starting 10. I don't think yesterday's news changes the fact that the starting out half for Ireland in next year's World Cup is going to be based on merit.
That's it, and we've seen those in selections this season, especially that it's guys based on form that are getting picked. If Johnny isn't playing well, if he isn't getting enough game time with Leinster, or if he's got a few niggly injuries, I think he won't be out there. We've seen the promise of 10s coming through. There's people crying out for Jack Carty, but we know exactly what Johnny Sexton can bring. And I think after this Six Nations, we'll see definitely a pecking order in those 10s, and everything will hopefully be based on form going forward from that.
I mean, the point that Owen makes is, really, if somebody takes the jersey off him, they will get the opportunity to take the jersey off him. But there's so limited, significant opportunities. There's the summer tour that you talked about. In the November window, we'll have 2 difficult tests, and then there's next year's Six Nations, and that's it. So the number of games in which you can take that jersey off him is very low. And is there even an opportunity for any of the younger Munster halves to get a window where they're going to get the big games in Europe now, because we have to give those big games in Europe to Carberry if he is going to be given an opportunity to push Sexton? And it feels like we've fixed in that this is the pecking order already, and it feels like we're kind of repeating some of the mistakes of previous generations.
Hopefully not. I think we've been crying out for a pecking order like the last year or so. We've had guys come in, we've had the Burns in and out. So I think it's good. I think we're seeing a bit of structure. We know Andy Farrell has talked about form. So yeah, the big games, maybe there isn't opportunities, but I think we have enough out halves there at the minute. We're kind of focusing on the likes of Carberry, who will have to go back in and start ahead of the likes of Ben Healy or Flannery. That's just the way it is for him to get the game time. So there isn't massive opportunity with the games, and obviously we don't have, an Ireland A team. We don't have those games. So it's kind of, I think it's good that this structure is in place. I think we're in the right time for it to happen, for us to settle on maybe Joey being back up to Johnny. And I suppose everyone is just praying that we can keep him fit and playing at the standard he's playing at the minute.
Yeah, the trouble is that both of them are injury prone in different ways. Like, Sexton will play, come back, puts his body on the line, suffers injuries as a result of that frequently, and misses games at this stage of his career as well. That can happen, where a hamstring injury that in his 20s would have healed after 2 weeks, suddenly a 4-weeker. So who's next after that? Because we haven't really seen a minute of Carty that wasn't like in chaos time at the end of the France game. Under this regime, and after that, I don't know who is the fourth choice. Is it Healy? Is it who is it? Is it Billy Burns? Is it Ross Byrne?
I think in looking at what's been going on, I don't think Billy Burns. I think he's had his chance and he hasn't really grabbed that jersey. So I think we've moved on from that. We saw Carty get up this time ahead of him. We haven't seen loads of Carty, but I think Farrell is looking at the provinces, and that's where they'll get their chance. So if either of the two guys, if both get injured, I think he has to go back and look to that drawing board and see who's the informed player. And you will argue that Healy can play well at times, but he's in and out of that Munster team with Crowley at the minute because we see him in form. The Burns, I think Ross got injured again the other day, so it is really hard. And I suppose that's the joys of rugby, is that especially in that position at 10, you're going to have big massive lads running down your channel really all the time. So it's kind of trying to keep the guys flowing at province level and hopefully hoping they'll take that step up. For me, I think it's Carty is the guy that's definitely there. We haven't got enough because Carberry has to see him enough, because Carberry's had to probably get that game time, especially against Italy. So it's just after that we'll see what's in Farrell's head. Hopefully we won't have to see that.
Yeah, it's it is a difficult situation for the coaching ticket, because they do need to see Joey Carberry play every available minute to see if he's capable of playing at the level that we think he is, because we just haven't seen it with injuries. But it's not a ridiculous scenario where you would have both Sexton and Carberry potentially injured at the same time in a World Cup, missing one game, or maybe missing 2 games, or maybe both gone for a period of time. And after that, it's like, well, here's somebody we looked at 4 years ago for the World Cup and hasn't really had much of an opportunity since. And then there's a bunch of young players who we're not sure about.
Yeah, when you say it like that, you don't know what they're thinking. They might have said, look, we're going to New Zealand, we are going to divide out that game time. They obviously understand the injury profile of both players, and we haven't seen the likes of Carty, we haven't seen the likes of Healy or whoever else is behind in that order step up and play enough games. So I would be hopeful that maybe, although it's 3 New Zealand tests, that these guys would get to play at that level and they'd get the appetite for it. And then in November we could see if they've taken that step up, or if they've been playing really well at the Europeans. He might switch a few of these guys in, looking at the World Cup ahead. Yeah,
okay. Let's talk about what you expect to happen against England. Eddie Jones is saying we're the most cohesive team in world rugby. He's love bombing us in the advance of this one, which is not really stereotypical Eddie Jones, but certainly trying to ratchet up the pressure on us and take the pressure off his team, which is under a lot of pressure at the moment. So we should ignore that, really, shouldn't we? And just look at the respective strengths of the two teams and go, Ireland are a much stronger team at the moment, and we should be able, when we are the stronger team, to go and inflict our game plan on the opposition and win these games.
Yeah, we know what Eddie's about. He's obviously taking the pressure off his own lads. And I think for an English coach to say any team going over to Twickenham and being, firm favourites and talking about us like that, we know that he's probably talking a little bit of crap saying that, because it's a very hard place to go to. It's a very hard place for any team. We saw that, we've seen England in the last 2 games. They're not great. The 23-19 win over Wales was good. They're building a little bit. They're swaying from their game plan maybe in the past of big ball carriers. We're not seeing that as much. There's not as much bulk, I don't think, in the teams. He's switched Harry Randall in, so we're seeing less of a kicking game from the 9. So I think Ireland just need to focus on themselves, and that's what they'll do. They know they're building as well. Italy, we can't take much from that game, but I think in the second half of France, we came out and we gave it a blast. Italy, as I said, we saw players put their hand up and say, look, if I want to get in this starting team as well. So there's good competition, we know, up at camp. So I think Ireland will just be focusing on their own game plan. We'll be going out and playing the exact same style of rugby we've been seeing from those first few tests against France.
And like that, sorry Fiona, like that point has been brought up a bit, this idea, and I guess Eddie Jones is the one putting it forward that Ireland maybe are in a better place than England. Are Ireland on paper a better team than England? Because it does seem that England are still kind of working out what sort of team they want to be, and on paper they still have plenty of quality and have traditionally had way more quality than Ireland.
I think Ireland are far more cohesive in what I'm watching with England. I think he's thrown a few guys in. We've seen, the likes of Freddie Stewart's gone into full back. We see Daly and Slade in the centre partnership. It just doesn't look like it's gelling. Obviously, he'd love to have Tuilagi in there. So I think he's building. this Ireland team, I think Andy Farrell has got them settled. I think we saw, especially when Johnny's on there, he's pulling those strings. We have guys stepping up as first receiver that we probably wouldn't have had maybe 3-4 years ago. We've props in there, every position. Everyone's ball skills is at a high level, and we're seeing that. We're seeing Ireland play a lot of ball, but there's also an understanding between players, and they have a really, really good understanding of the game plan as well that he's trying to give.
So that's great. How do we get better over the next 12, 14, 16 months?
Yeah, that's it. We don't want to peak too soon anyway. We've seen that in the past. We don't want to be upping ourselves too soon. I think we just need to keep building, and I suppose the biggest thing is what you talked about, lads, earlier, is that depth. So we've got to get more guys into that position. We've got to get the likes of Lowry in full back for some games. We've got to get a couple of those back rows in there. We've got to get Coombs in there. As you spoke, we've got to start switching up the 10s. We obviously want to win games. Ireland have the potential to win a lot of games, but we've got to win them by making a few changes. So when we get to that World Cup that everyone's on the same level, they're all playing that high intense rugby, but they're all comfortable, and that cohesion hasn't gone because maybe 2 players have gotten injured.
So do you make changes for this week on the basis that the players are supposed to be interchangeable, they're supposed to be capable of stepping in, and this is the opportunity to do that? Or do you go back to the team that really beat Wales in that first game and go, that's our team? With the exception of Porter, obviously.
Yeah, obviously Porter. I think he's going to go back to that team. I think he's looked at this Six Nations, obviously. France, we've talked about how good they are. We're hoping that maybe they can slip up, and we're next in line. So the Six Nations is still there to be taken. So I think he will go back to that first squad that we've seen, bar Porter. We might see Healy coming in with Kilcoyne on the bench. I think there's still a little bit more in that team, and I think he wants to see more out of those guys. So although, yeah, we should be interchanging some players, I think he did that against Italy. So I think he will go back for this big Twickenham test, and I think he will go with the original team that we started in that very first game at the Six Nations.
And one last question then. Henshaw in instead of Aki, or Aki in and Henshaw on the bench?
I think he's going to go with Aki. I think especially against that England midfield, we need Aki. We need that power game, and we know what he can bring. I think Henshaw could come on off the bench. That would be my take on it. He's suited to England, I think, Aki. I think he loves, he loves that attacking. He loves getting over that gain line and getting those offloads away. Obviously, Henshaw can offer you a lot more as well. But with this game, it's going to be a kicking game from England. Maybe if they start Ben Young. So I would think that we would try to attack, and maybe Aki's the best man to be carrying us over that gain line.
All right, give us your prediction.
I think it's going to be closer than a lot of people think, but I think Ireland by +4.
All right, good stuff. Fiona, enjoy the game. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Fiona Hayes giving us her thoughts there.